Well, hey everyone, this is Chris DeFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer from Voga Coffee, an amazing brewer that's literally revolutionizing the way that we understand batch brew coffee and more. The SCA award-winning technology allows you to extract an incredible range of flavors from your coffee and control it, but it's more than just game-changing batch brew. It is also able to brew tea, hot cocoa, and brew batched iced lattes and batch cold brew. So if you're looking for a lot of versatility, as well as something to really level up the quality of your beverages, then the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer is definitely something you should look at for your cafe. Go check them out over at vogacoffee.com. That's VOGA coffee.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Espressly. Espressly works with independent coffee shop owners like yourself to help them develop their very own beautiful and functional branded mobile app. So if during the time of COVID, you've really looked into pivoting into mobile ordering more, which so many people have, then this is the time to check out something like Espressly, because unlike a lot of other apps that you could get, Espressly allows you to create a more connected experience with your customers along with the convenience of mobile ordering. So the model is a no-risk model. There's no setup or development fees. You get a drive-through payment scanner, receipt and label printing capabilities. It works with some of the best processing systems out there. It stores the value in the app, plus you get to keep all of the data. So this is a huge win for you, something that I think you really should check out. To learn more and sign up, go to espressly.co. That's espressly.co. All right, everybody. Well, I hope that you're having a great day today. I'm recording this during a really cool ice storm. And I say cool, but there's so many things that are not cool about an ice storm. But I'm wanting to talk to you about accountability. Accountability can be taken a few different ways when we apply it to our businesses. It's something that I always put into the operational procedures for my clients when we're working on setting up standard operating procedures. One of the main questions that we ask ourselves is, well, how do we build in accountability for baristas and for leaders? And that is something that does need to have a system around it through feedback, through communication, meetings, standards that we all agree to and sign off on, things like that. So I'm not going to dive into it so much in that regard because I think by now you know my mind around things like accountability and that it does need to be a real process in your store. It's not something that you just wish people would make themselves accountable or you wish that somebody else would hold you accountable. You really just have to make it happen and make it a real process and real system in your shop. So outside of that, though, I want to talk about exactly what happens after we start holding people accountable. So let's say that we put in a system that helps people become accountable for the standards that they've signed off on, okay? But there's two reactions that people can have. There are people who resist, and then there are people who thrive. And so because of that, accountability can be either oppressive or it can add welcomed momentum and motivation. For the person who's being held accountable, if they're going to resist or thrive with accountability, it depends on their mindset and how they approach their work. See, the system is there to help you to a particular end, assuming that you've signed on for this, knowing the parameters, knowing the job and the responsibility. You can't really rely on the system for motivation. It's there to help existing motivation. So a lot of people are fond of saying, it's not my job to motivate employees. They should already be motivated, and then I am inspiring them. So I like that way of thinking, honestly, because it's basically saying people who work at a job as adults are responsible for their own motivation for doing what they knew the job was before signing up for it. And if you're having to pull them along kicking and screaming, that's not a good sign. That's actually a sign of a bad hire. And I say a bad hire, I'm not saying this person is a bad person. I'm saying it's not the right fit, or this person is just not mature enough to be able to motivate themselves and function within the system that they've actually signed on for as an employee. So accountability, when you start making people more accountable for their work, it will either fan the flame of motivation that the people who are a right fit have, or it's going to push people away even further that are already not motivated. They don't want to be held accountable because accountability asks the question, are you still on board for this? And it's not a doubtful question. It's just now we're really doubling down on this. And if you're down for it, it's not like it's going to threaten you. But if you're not down for it, it's exposing you. See the difference? It's a question we all need to answer every day as we swing from highly inspired to checked out. We're human beings. We do that. Accountability is really helpful. If I intend to do a great job, if I have motivation that I've generated myself towards my job, accountability is helpful because it supplies something that I need to get me over that hump and to the next level. But if I'm trying to hide, then accountability is something I don't want to see. I don't want to have a one-on-one with my boss. I don't want to be asked about my performance or about a problem on bar. I don't see those as opportunities for growth. I see that accountability as my enemy. So maybe you have people who are like that right now. People who whenever you hold them accountable for stuff, if within the system they actually enjoy the getting better part, they enjoy being held accountable. And then there's others who run away from it. So the question is, what do you do now? Well, first of all, we have to make sure that we're on the side of being motivated, that we're the ones who are welcoming accountability. This goes for leaders too. If you're a boss who doesn't want to hear feedback from your baristas, then you're running away from accountability. You're running away from feedback because you're afraid of what it might say about you, about your business. You're on the wrong side of this equation. Now let's talk about the baristas, though. These are opportunities to have frank conversations about, is this the right fit for you? If people are resisting, dropping the ball all over the place, and when you try to hold them accountable, it just feels like they're resentful that you're actually trying to hold them accountable for doing their job, then it probably is time to start exploring some kind of a disciplinary process in writing, formally laid out, that they're fully aware of. So you definitely don't want to just fire them because you don't like their attitude. You need to cover yourself in paperwork and process, and also make it fully known to the barista that we can't have you continue to resist a system that we have in place that's meant to be for everybody's benefit. And if being held accountable for work is something that you don't want at work, then you probably shouldn't be there in the first place. That's if you're the barista or the owner. If you find yourself as the owner and you think, I just hate when people come to me with problems and, expose me for different things, you really should question whether you want to be in this business, honestly. So the purpose today of this conversation with you is to make you aware that accountability is a metric by which we can determine both yours and your employees' mindsets towards work. For accountability to be a real process, for it to actually contribute to the success of everybody in the coffee shop, it needs to be something that we welcome, not something that we dread. And so I hope that this has given you something to think about and maybe helped you make some decisions about how you approach work. And maybe you need to have some talks with certain staff members about how they approach work also. I want to give a caveat here that sometimes we can approach accountability from an authoritarian type of view, and a resistance that people are feeling towards your accountability might just be because you're being a jerk. It just could be because you're not applying accountability well. You're just kind of bludgeoning people. So you have to make sure that you are not the reason why they're resisting, that they're actually just resisting because they're trying to shirk responsibility. It's just the same as when you want to determine what the cause of a bad shot of espresso is. You've got to eliminate certain parameters in order to identify the one that's actually making the espresso not turn out the way it should be. In this case, remove yourself and do the work to actually determine whether you are the cause of this resistance or not. And then after that, if you know that it's not you and it's actually that person, and there's a lot of evidence to that, then you can go from there. So I think accountability, one of the major missing pieces in most coffee bars. It's a hard thing to do, especially in a small business, but I would encourage you to lean into building accountability into your structures, into your systems, and watch how it transforms your business and the people in it. So that's it for today's Shift Break. Thank you so much for joining me. I do want to let you know that on Monday nights at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I am sitting down on Instagram Live and taking questions. Questions about coffee shops, about the show, the coffee industry, all that type of thing. maybe trivia. I don't know. I'm kind of good at trivia sometimes. But I would love to see you tune in. If you haven't followed Keys to the Shop on Instagram, I would encourage you to do that. I'm going to put out a lot more content there in the coming year. So you definitely want to be tuned in for that. So I'll see you hopefully Monday night. Otherwise, have an amazing week. And I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from Keys to the Shop.